Let's go live now. Labor MP Joel Fitzgibbon joins me, I think. Good to see you, Joel. There you are. We've just seen this announcement from the government this morning, less than 24 hours after we've seen this report from an international energy agency saying we've really got to wind down fossil fuels. What do you make of that?
Well, that's not what the agency said at all, Laura. What it said is that it belled the cat, really. It was almost tongue-in-cheek, I thought. I've read the report. I'm sure there are a few who have. What the International Energy Agency is saying is, look, all of your countries, and it's in particular talking to Europeans, are making these commitments to zero net emissions by 2050. And if you're serious about that, this is what you will need to do. And of course, it's taking into account the slow take-up of renewables, in particular, in relative terms, in places like Asia and in developing countries everywhere. It makes the point, of course, that you'll have to do more walking than driving. You'll have to give up some international holidays throughout the course of your year. The other point it makes, of course, is that if you're going to get there, you are going to be very heavily reliant on carbon capture and storage technology. So it's a bit of a wake-up call to all of those people making these commitments, but without really backing them up with policy. Now, ironically, Australia is probably a better placed than anyone to get to zero net emissions without doing any harm to our economy, because our electricity generation sector is already in transition, and we have lots of innovation going on here, particularly in carbon capture and storage, that will take us down that path successfully without forsaking traditional jobs.
Okay, so what should the target be in 2050? Should there be a firm target to give that signal to business, or do you think the government's on the right approach here by saying it's really more of a aspiration and confident that they'll get there?
No, I think Australia can commit to zero net emissions because I think we're almost uniquely placed to get there. And a target will help us in our ambitions and help drive us, a bit like a weight loss target. Laura, if you have one, it helps you to motivate yourself and to arrive at the place you want to land. So there's no harm in Australia having such a target. But when countries like China, for example, talk about zero net emissions by 2060, it's somewhat problematic. And the International Energy Agency really laboured the point that what the international community collectively is committing itself to is very, very challenging.
Indeed. We see this announcement today in Kurri Kurri that'll be formalised by Angus Taylor in just a couple of hours from now. $600 million of taxpayer funds going towards this gas-fired plant. Is that a good idea?
Yes, it is, Laura, unequivocally. You know, someone said to me yesterday, why is the government investing? Where is the market failure? There is market failure. Liddell is decommissioning in 2023. It's a 2,000 megawatt power generator, so we have an enormous gap. The market failure has been, ironically, earlier government decisions to interfere in the market, to send the wrong signals to private sector investments, and as a result, the investment from the private sector hasn't been forthcoming. And now, last week, Tomago Aluminium, Laura, had three outages that went very close to disaster for that manufacturing plant. We have a capacity gap, a generation gap, that now must be filled and filled very quickly. Now, Snowy Hydro is a business enterprise wholly owned by the government. It will make good money out of the investment in Kurri Kurri. It will create jobs, it will fill the supply gap, and of course it will put downward pressure on energy prices.
Well, we've just heard from your colleague this morning, Amanda Rishworth, that says this isn't necessary, it doesn't stack up, this is a government cynical vote-buying exercise. The project doesn't seem to give you value for taxpayers' money. Are you in the right party?
Well, Laura, I spend most of my life studying the energy market and talking to investors and industry players. I've had many conversations with Snowy Hydro about the feasibility of this project. I've read lots of reports about the merging supply gap we have in the market. If we don't build more firming power into the market prior to the closure of the Liddell in 2023, we will have big manufacturing plants like Tomago Aluminium shutting down. And that across our eastern seaboard, Laura, could lead to the loss of thousands of jobs. And of course, not to mention the pressure on price that supply gap will have, and what the consequences will be, not only for households, Laura, but for our industry, our manufacturing industry in particular.
But why did it have to be gas? Could there have been another option here? Renewables, batteries?
Well, in the Hunter here, Laura, where I am today, campaigning in the Upper Hunter, we have in the investment pipeline proposals for pumped hydro, for battery storage, for large-scale solar, and of course a hydrogen hub. We are moving more quickly than any region in Australia. But if we're going to fill that gap before 2023, and if we're going to allow space for more renewables into the NEM, then we're going to have to build firming power, and we need to do that very quickly. Now, battery storage can help with firming power, but we are not there yet with that technology. The only way we can fill the gap left by Liddell is to quickly build a gas-fired power station. We have the capacity to do that. The government can make a good rate of return on such an investment. We need to get on with it, and we need to get on with it very quickly.
All right, you just missed it, Joel. We just saw the Prime Minister driving a truck. Now, you're campaigning there in the Upper Hunter. Any plans to drive a truck or anything that might, upstage the PM with that?
Nothing so exciting, Laura, just standing on a pre-poll booth, interacting with local people in the community. We have an amazing candidate up here in Jeff Drayton, a former coal miner himself. We've never won this seat. The National Party well and truly own it, but at $10 on $6 on Sportsbet, I reckon we're worth a lazy $10.
Okay, well, we'll see you campaigning for the next couple of days. Thanks so much. We might not be too far away from a federal election as well. Joel Fitzgibbon, appreciate your time.
A pleasure, Laura.